What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Mello with Marty's Buick GMC and Chevrolet, and in today's video, we'll be talking about the new 2025 Corvette SUV. Seriously, something I thought would never happen in a million years. And asking you all the important question of this series, would you buy one? So let's get into it. All right, so for those who aren't aware, the rumors of a Corvette SUV have been circulating around the internet for a long time, and I'd attribute much of that speculation is due to this vehicle right here, the Mustang Mach-E. Yeah, we're going to have to talk about a Ford first, but just hear me out. First introduced in November of 2019, the Mustang Mach-E was met with all sorts of criticism, especially from the purist and enthusiast crowd, which I have to think was expected because not only was Ford slapping the legendary Mustang nameplate onto an SUV or a crossover, however you really want to view it, they're kind of one and the same at this point, but it was also announced as being electric, sort of a double whammy, if you will. And people were losing their minds about it. It received a ton of hate, and many people thought it would be a complete failure because, as you know, nobody wants a Mustang SUV, let alone an EV one. But as it turns out, the Mustang Mach-E has been wildly successful for Ford. So much so that Ford has tripled their EV sales this year over last, and most of that is not due to the new Lightning, but the demand of the Mach-E. So keeping that in mind, last week, Car and Driver reported that according to their sources, and mind you, this is Car and Driver, so I expect this source to be a pretty reputable one, said that GM has plans to launch Corvette as a real sub-brand to Chevrolet with a four-door and SUV variant due for 2025. Now, I'm sure some of you watching are already on the I hate it bandwagon without really knowing much else about it, but just try to have an open mind for at least a second. Some of you might recall when Porsche announced that they would be building an SUV, and this was way back, I believe, in like 2002-ish. And people went nuts, thinking it would never work. It was like sacrilegious that Porsche was building an SUV anyway, but nobody was going to want it, calling them crazy. How could you ever think about getting into the performance SUV market? But fast forward to today, and if not for their SUVs, they'd most likely be bankrupt. And that's not even an exaggeration. Hell, I think even Porsche would tell you that. Jump to 2018, Lamborghini brings the Urus to market. Once again, we heard the same story. What a stupid move. No one's going to buy a Lamborghini SUV. Ferruccio Lamborghini would be rolling over in his grave right now. But lo and behold, the Urus is now Lamborghini's best-selling vehicle by far, with more units sold than the Huracan and Aventador combined, and no signs of slowing down. In fact, the Urus has been so successful for Lamborghini that even Ferrari is now throwing its hat into the SUV ring with the Ferrari Purosangue, and I probably pronounced that wrong. Someone can kill me in the comments, but we would all be foolish at this point to think that GM isn't paying attention to this, because after all, the Corvette was always an American answer to the exotic or foreign supercar market. And let's be real, it's done its job quite well. So with all the demand for SUVs and crossovers, whether we like it or not, especially now performance, it makes sense that GM joins the party. Now, I've been thinking quite a bit about how GM would pull off an SUV version of the Corvette and what exactly it would look like, but thanks to the guys over at Motor Trend and a little artificial intelligence magic, they actually came up with a few conceptualized designs, which I picked my favorite of, and then I had to make a few tweaks to it to make it my liking, but I ended up with this, a 2025 Corvette Z06 inspired SUV, or what Motor Trend called a ZUV because, well, marketing. Motor Trend actually came up with 12 different images, including the original image that I tweaked, which is what you're seeing on your screen now. And I'm going to go ahead and leave a link to this article in the description below because you guys should definitely check that out after you finish watching this. But of all the images, this one, I have to be honest, this is the one that stood out to me the most. And I don't hate it. Call me crazy, and I'm sure many of you will, but I think GM would sell these things just as fast, if not faster, than the current generation C8 Corvette, which, as we all know, has been an absolute smash hit for the brand, and rightfully so. It's awesome. Now, looking at this render, we do have a few problems, but let's keep in mind, this is a computer-generated image, so we've got to give it at least a little bit of slack. The chances of GM making a mid-engined SUV are about zero. So these big C8 style side vents probably wouldn't make much sense as we wouldn't have an engine in the back to cool, but perhaps they could still come up with a way to keep them around just for aesthetics by maybe utilizing them for brake cooling. And I do have to say, I do love the insanely over-the-top, overly aggressive front end. The aero kit, the hood, the headlights, it all sort of works for me. although I'm sure it's way over the top for some. We can just ignore the weird wing for now, since the back of this thing is essentially completely unknown from this angle. I mean, it's all a conceptualized image after all. But when it comes to performance, we do have some info. According to Car and Driver, quote, the mechanical package apparently includes battery packs with high energy density, super fast software, a patented cooling concept, staggered Lego-like topographic packaging, miniaturized componentry, ultra-efficient inverters, high-revving electric motors, an 800-volt electrical system that provides up to 350 kilowatts of charging power, and that's good. That means it'll charge really fast. A 2-speed transmission. That's interesting. Brake-by-wire, multi-mode 4-wheel steering, and torque vectoring, end quote. So, yes, it will, of course, be an EV. That's just the reality at this point. I'd also expect we'll get 3 or 4 different trims, much like Ford's Mach-E. At least, that would just make the most sense to me, but we'll have to wait a little bit longer to find out for sure once GM decides to actually pull the curtain back a little bit and let us know some more info. Now, with it coming to market as an EV, and knowing my audience pretty well at this point, I have a pretty good guess where most of you will stand on this thing, but I still want you to answer the question. Would you buy one? And if EV's your holdup, would you buy one if it came with a V8? For me personally, it would have to really come out swinging for me to want to switch from the Hummer EV to a Corvette EV SUV, because 4x4 is just a lot of fun, off-road in the beach. But I'd have to make that decision after a test drive, because after all, I originally had zero interest in keeping the Hummer. I thought I'd hate the thing. I thought I'd hate driving an EV, but that was, of course, until I drove it and realized just how insane these things actually are. And before someone asks, no, I didn't get rid of my Sierra. I still have it. I would never get rid of that truck. I love that thing. But let me know in the comments below, would you buy one? And as always, I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you made it this far in the video, if you could do me a huge favor, it's the holidays. All I ask, just smash that like button. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already, to stay up to date on all things GM. Be sure to check out my friends over at martysparts.com for all your GM OEM parts needs. And I will catch you all in the very next video. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have a great weekend and take care.